Hello, my name is Tim Sweijs. I'm the Director of Research at HCSS. I'm joined by the Dutch Minister of Defence, Ruben Brekelmans. Welcome, Minister.
Thank you.
Today we've been discussing here the Baltic Defence Line. That, of course, is part of a broader deterrence and defence of the Euro-Atlantic area, and specifically focusing on the eastern borders. My question to you is, there has been a lot of new plans within NATO, and the NATO new force model, regional plans. What do you see going forward as being the core priorities for the alliance?
I think it's threefold. So one, we need to expand basically all our capacities in every domain. So we are currently active in Lithuania, of course, with our army. Also, we have F-35s in Estonia. But in the future, this should all be much bigger, with bigger size, bigger quantity. That's one. But second, we also need to look at the command and control of all those assets, and also the support that is needed for that. So in terms of logistics, medical support, inventories that we need. And that is a key challenge for all of us to make sure that we can also put that on the ground. And third, in the meantime, in this region we see, of course, hybrid threats, hybrid activities, especially in the Baltic Sea when it comes to our undersea critical infrastructure. And we also need to make sure that we put maritime resources there. We as the Netherlands are doing that. But it's not enough. We also need to make sure that we have the right legal frameworks, the right legal ways in order to act and to respond. And I think there's also more needs to be done, and we also need to coordinate those efforts so we do not invent the wheel ourselves, or each of us individually is inventing the wheel, but that we do this together.
We'll learn from our allies.
Exactly.
So quantity as a quality, C2, infrastructure, logistics,
yep.
and preparing for conflict under the threshold of large-scale violence.
Yep.
In that context, you can speak of military readiness and societal readiness.
Yep.
What do you think needs to be done on these two fronts?
I think in the Netherlands there's still a lot that needs to be done. That's why we, as the government, we announced our resilience strategy. We announced this in the fall. It basically laid out all the dimensions of resilience, both societal but also from a military perspective. And over the course of this year, in the first few months, we are now working out what types of measures are needed. And I think you can distinguish three levels. One is on an individual level, so how can people prepare themselves for crisis situations at home, but also in their streets with their families, to make sure that if we are disrupted, that it will not turn into chaos, but that people are prepared. Second, and this is at least as important, organizations, governments, companies should also prepare for these scenarios. So do you have the backup systems? Do you have alternative ways of operating if you do not have access to internet, no electricity, something like that for a couple of days? And third, we need to look at military preparedness. And I sometimes say, in peacetime people ask what can the military do for society? But in this gray zone where we are now, we also are asking what can society do for us? So if tensions are rising and a lot of military equipment and personnel needs to be moved through the Netherlands, are we prepared for that with our infrastructure? Can we also ask then logistical companies to help us? What about environmental regulations at those moments? So that's also a very important aspect of preparedness that is important for us as a military. And we are also further developing those plans, making sure what the different responsibilities are, to make sure that we are prepared for those types of scenarios.
Excellent. Your Baltic colleagues have spoken at length about conscription.
Yeah.
Is that also relevant in the Dutch discussion?
No, we are not looking at this. Of course, we need a lot more people, but the good thing is that there is a lot of appetite to work for the Dutch military. So we have introduced a couple of years ago, for example, the service year, het dienjaar is called in Dutch. And we see that it is oversubscribed by 5, 10, sometimes even 100 times, because there are so many people that are interested. But we do not only see this with the service year, we see that with other vacancies as well. We see this in the general applications that we get to join the military. And I think given that there is so much untapped potential, I think we should leverage that more, because the key challenge for us is how to absorb those applicants. Because if people join the military, we need to make sure that they have a useful and a good experience, that they can do valuable work. because otherwise they will leave after 1 or 2 years, and it doesn't bring us any strength. So for us, the key challenge is now is to make sure that if more people apply, that they do not have to wait, but that they can be active very soon, and that they will also have a interesting path in front of them. And that's now our key priority.
Excellent. To bolster both societal and military resilience.
Yeah.
By means of conclusion, we're hosting the NATO Summit later this year in June in The Hague. What, according to you, should be the key priorities for that summit?
I think for every NATO summit, the key is to show unity and strength. Because if we do not show that, of course, that is then playing into the hands of Putin and of others. Of course, there's going to be discussion about the defense investment pledge, about the 2%. We have seen, of course, many remarks about this over the last couple of days, and those, of course, opinions and remarks will continue. I think it will take some time in order to come to a conclusion on this, but fortunately we still have a couple of months to have those discussions. It's first and foremost, it's up to NATO to coordinate this, not for the Netherlands as a hosting country, but of course we do help in facilitating this. And we need to make sure, of course, that we come to a shared position when it's the NATO Summit in June. Second, key priority is going to be the defense industry, because we have been saying this all the time that we need to ramp up our industry, but still the progress is not big enough. I do see now that my budget is going up, but also the prices are going up. And if the budget goes up by, let's say, 20%, but prices also go up by 20%, in the end of the day you do not have the additional capabilities that you need. And third, the topic of resilience that we just discussed will also be an important topic of the NATO Summit. And finally, I mentioned it as the last one, but of course it's maybe the most important one, our support to Ukraine and how to sustain that. That's going to be very important as well. So it's going to be, I think, a very interesting summit. Still a lot of work needs to be done, but it was very good today to have this conversation with our Baltic colleagues and to see, what are our different views among like-minded countries as we are, and to see where further work needs to be done in order to also get other countries on board when it comes to these important topics.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Minister.